Mysticism refers to phenomena that lie beyond ordinary human experience and are often attributed to supernatural forces, ghosts, spirits, poltergeists, and other mysterious events with no obvious explanation. For centuries, people have shared stories of ghostly encounters, unexplained sounds, objects moving on their own, and even communication with the dead. These narratives permeate folklore, literature, and modern media, fueling both fear and fascination with the supernatural. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe, and now you can relax. The popularity of mysticism in culture remains high, from paranormal reality shows to horror films and urban legends. This is partly due to humanity's innate desire to seek explanations where science remains silent, as well as a psychological need to believe in something beyond the material world. The goal of this video is to explore what scientific theories and factors might underlie supposedly mystical phenomena. Could ghosts be tricks of light and shadow? Might poltergeists result from infrasound or psychological states? To answer these questions, we will analyze real-life cases, consult experts in neuroscience, physics, and psychology, and examine scientific studies and cognitive biases that lead people to perceive the supernatural in ordinary events. Ghosts. The phenomenon of ghosts has haunted human imagination for centuries, transcending cultures and historical periods. People across the world report remarkably similar experiences: shadowy figures glimpsed from the corner of the eye, fleeting silhouettes that vanish when directly observed, sudden and unexplained drops in room temperature, and that overwhelmed sense of presence when no visible person occupies the space. These encounters are often interpreted as evidence of spirits or lingering souls, but modern science offers alternative explanations that may demystify these age-old experiences. One of the most compelling scientific theories involves infrasound. When infrasound waves frequency sound waves below 20 Hz, which fall beneath the range of human hearing but can still profoundly affect both body and mind. Pioneering research by British scientist Vic Tandy in the 1990s first drew connections between infrasound and paranormal experiences. In his laboratory, Tandy noticed feelings of unease and visual hallucinations that he eventually traced to a 19 Hz standing wave from a fan. Subsequent studies have confirmed that infrasound can induce feelings ranging from mild discomfort to intense dread, along with visual distortions that some interpret as ghostly apparitions. Natural sources like wind passing through narrow corridors, underground water movement, or even traffic vibrations from distant roads can generate these haunting frequencies. Many notorious haunters locations, including ancient castles and abandoned hospitals, feature architectural elements that naturally amplify such low-frequency sounds. Electromagnetic fields, EMFs, present another plausible explanation for ghostly encounters. Canadian neuroscientist Michael Persinger conducted groundbreaking experiments demonstrating that targeted electromagnetic stimulation of the temporal lobe could induce vivid mystical experiences. High levels of EMFs, whether from faulty wiring, old electrical systems, or natural geological activity, have been consistently linked to sensations of paranoia, disorientation, and the distinct perception of an invisible presence. In controlled laboratory settings, volunteers exposed to carefully calibrated EMFs frequently report the eerie feeling that someone or something stands nearby. Some of the world's most infamous haunted sites, including the Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia and England's Hampton Court Palace, exhibit unusual electromagnetic fluctuations that correlate with reported paranormal activity. Psychological factors undoubtedly play a crucial role in shaping ghostly experiences. The human brain operates as a prediction machine, constantly interpreting ambiguous sensory information based on expectations and past experiences. Stress, sleep deprivation, and grief can dramatically alter these perceptual processes. Bereaved individuals frequently report sensing or even seeing deceased loved ones, experiences that psychologists attribute to the normal grieving process rather than supernatural intervention. Sleep researchers have identified hypnagogic when falling asleep and hypnopompic when waking hallucinations as common sources of vivid dreamlike visions that many interpret as ghostly encounters. The brain's tendency toward pattern recognition, pareidolia, explains why people often see faces in random shadows or interpret ambiguous noises as voices from beyond. Cultural conditioning and expectation significantly influence paranormal experiences. When entering a location reputed to be haunted, the brain becomes hyper-alert to potential anomalies, interpreting ordinary stimuli like creaking floorboards, shifting temperatures, or light reflections as supernatural manifestations. This phenomenon, known as perceptual set, helps explain why ghost sightings often conform to cultural expectations: Victorian ladies in period homes, soldiers in old battlefields, rather than appearing as random figures. The power of suggestion, amplified by ghost hunting television shows and paranormal lore, primes individuals to interpret ambiguous experiences through a supernatural lens. Perhaps most surprisingly, environmental toxins, particularly certain types of mold, may contribute to some ghostly experiences. Toxic mold species like Stachybotrys, Chartarum black mold release mycotoxins that, when inhaled, can cause neurological symptoms including confusion, anxiety, and vivid hallucinations. Historical cases of haunted dwellings often reveal poor ventilation and damp conditions ideal for mold growth. The Salem witch trials of 1692 to 93 have been re-examined through this lens, with some researchers suggesting that ergot fungus, a mold that grows on damp rye, may have caused the convulsions and visions that sparked the hysteria. Modern cases continue to emerge, where residents report paranormal phenomena that ultimately trace back to mold infestations or carbon monoxide leaks, both known to alter perception and cognition. Numerous well-documented hauntings have yielded to scientific explanation. The famed phantom footsteps of Rainham Hall in England, captured in the iconic 1936 Brown Lady photograph, were eventually linked to specific vibration patterns in the home's ancient floorboards. A family in Coventry reported nightly encounters with a shadowy figure and sudden cold spots until investigators discovered an improperly installed basement furnace emitting irregular infrasound waves. The phenomena ceased after repairs. In a particularly striking case, a woman became convinced her apartment housed a malevolent spirit. Medical testing revealed carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty heater, and her haunt experiences ended with proper ventilation. Neuroscience continues to unravel why certain individuals seem more prone to paranormal experiences. Research suggests that people who report frequent supernatural encounters often exhibit slight differences in temporal lobe activity, the brain region associated with sensory integration and spiritual experiences. The brain's default mode network, active during restful states, may generate internal narratives that some interpret as external phenomena. These findings don't diminish the reality of people's experiences, but rather provide frameworks for understanding them. As technology advances, new investigative tools allow more precise examination of haunted locations. Thermal imaging cameras detect temperature variations that might explain cold spots, while motion sensors track subtle vibrations previously attributed to spirits. Sophisticated audio analysis separates ordinary building noises from truly unexplained sounds. Ironically, the same devices popularized by ghost hunters often provide scientific explanations for the phenomena they're deployed to document. The persistence of ghost stories throughout human history speaks to fundamental aspects of our psychology and neurology. These experiences fulfill deep-seated needs: to feel connected to lost loved ones, to make sense of random events, to assert that consciousness transcends physical death. While science may never explain every anecdotal account, it continues to demonstrate how environmental factors and brain function conspire to create experiences indistinguishable from supernatural encounters. The next time you feel an unseen presence in a dark room, consider whether the cause might be something far more ordinary, yet no less fascinating than a ghost. Our remarkable brains, evolved to keep us safe in a dangerous world, may be the most prolific ghost makers of all. Poltergeists. For centuries, reports of poltergeist activity, objects moving on their own, unexplained knocking sounds, electronics turning off and on, and even furniture sliding across the floor, have fueled legends of restless spirits. Unlike traditional hauntings, which often involve ghostly apparitions, poltergeist cases are defined by physical disturbances usually centered around a specific person, often an adolescent. While some believe these phenomena are supernatural, scientific research suggests psychological and environmental factors may be at play. Poltergeist disturbances typically follow a pattern. Objects fall or fly across rooms without explanation. Loud banging noises emerge from walls, lights flicker, and doors slam shut. In extreme cases, witnesses report levitating furniture, spontaneous fires, or even physical attacks by an unseen force. Unlike ghost sightings, which are often visual, poltergeist activity is primarily kinetic. Things move, break, or behave erratically. Historically, these events were attributed to mischievous spirits. The word poltergeist comes from German, meaning noisy ghost. However, modern investigations reveal that many cases coincide with emotional turmoil, particularly in households with adolescents undergoing stress. This has led to alternative theories, including psychokinesis, environmental factors, and even deliberate trickery. One of the most compelling scientific explanations is recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, RSPK, the idea that intense emotional energy, particularly from a distressed individual, can unconsciously influence the physical environment. Parapsychologists suggest that repressed anger, anxiety, or trauma might manifest in rare cases as telekinetic phenomena. The classic example is the Enfield poltergeist, 1977 to 1979, where two sisters, Janet and Margaret Hodgson, claimed to be tormented by a disruptive spirit. Witnesses reported furniture sliding, objects being thrown, and even Janet levitating. While some researchers believe the case was genuine, others point to inconsistencies, including evidence that the girls may have faked some events. Still, the emotional stress in the household, a recent divorce, financial struggles fits the RSPK model. Similarly, the Rosenheim poltergeist 1967 to 1968 centered around a 19-year-old office clerk named Annemarie Schneider. Lights flickered, phones rang on their own, and electrical devices malfunctioned, phenomena that stopped when she left the building. Engineers found no technical explanation, leading some to speculate that her subconscious mind was generating these disturbances. Not all poltergeist cases withstand scrutiny. Some turn out to be elaborate hoaxes, particularly when individuals seek attention or financial gain. The Amityville Horror, for instance, was later revealed to be largely fabricated for profit. Even in famous cases like Enfield, skeptics argue that the girls may have manipulated objects when unsupervised. Another factor is autosuggestion, when people convince themselves of paranormal activity due to expectation or fear. In stressful environments, ordinary sounds like house settling or pipes knocking can be misinterpreted as supernatural. Once a haunted narrative takes hold, even minor coincidences reinforce the belief. Many supposed poltergeist events have mundane explanations. Infestations, rats, mice, or insects can knock over objects, scratch walls, and create eerie noises. Structural issues, old houses shift, pipes rattle, and faulty wiring can cause flickering lights. Infrasound, low-frequency sound waves below 20 Hz can induce feelings of unease and even cause objects to vibrate subtly. Electromagnetic fields, EMFs, strong EMFs from wiring or appliances may cause hallucinations or paranoia, making people perceive normal events as supernatural. In the Mackenzie poltergeist case in Edinburgh's Greyfriars Kirkyard, visitors reported being pushed by unseen forces. Investigations later suggested uneven flooring and high EMF levels may have contributed to disorientation. Some poltergeist cases may stem from psychological conditions, dissociative states. Trauma or extreme stress can lead to altered consciousness, where individuals unconsciously create disturbances. Mass hysteria, In group settings, collective anxiety can amplify perceptions of paranormal activity, sleep paralysis, and hallucinations. While some poltergeist cases remain unexplained, most have plausible scientific or psychological explanations. The recurring link between emotional distress and physical disturbances suggests that the human mind, not spirits, may be the true agent behind these phenomena. Whether through unconscious psychokinesis, environmental factors, or outright deception, poltergeists continue to challenge our understanding of reality. The next time objects seem to move on their own, it might be worth checking for drafts, rodents, or stressed teenagers before assuming a ghost is to blame. The psychology of haunted places, why some locations feel eerily alive. Certain places seem to carry an undeniable atmosphere of unease. Abandoned asylums where whispers seem to echo down empty corridors, ancient castles where shadows move just beyond your vision, or lonely stretches of road where countless travelers report seeing the same ghostly figure. These locations often share no obvious connection beyond one unsettling quality: they feel haunted. But what actually makes a place seem evil or spirit-infested? Science reveals this phenomenon stems from a complex interplay of environmental factors, psychological mechanisms, and cultural storytelling. The very design of some structures seems to prime us for supernatural experiences. Research in environmental psychology shows we instinctively react to certain spatial qualities with unease. Low ceilings, asymmetrical layouts, and narrow corridors, common in many haunted locations like old prisons or hospitals, create a sense of confinement and disorientation. Our peripheral vision becomes more sensitive in such spaces, making us more likely to misinterpret shadows or movement. Lighting plays a crucial role. The flickering, uneven illumination characteristic of many historic buildings creates what psychologists call perceptual instability. This constant visual uncertainty keeps our threat detection systems on high alert. Similarly, sudden temperature drops, often caused by poor insulation or air currents in old buildings, trigger our primal association between cold and danger. Think a chill ran down my spine. Acoustic properties amplify the effect. Buildings with hard surfaces and irregular shapes produce strange sound reflections. A door closing elsewhere might arrive as an unidentifiable thump right behind you. The famous whispering gallery effect, where sounds travel improbably far through architectural quirks, has fueled countless ghost stories throughout history. Merely knowing a location's reputation can dramatically alter our perception of it. This phenomenon, called expectant attention, means we're far more likely to interpret ambiguous stimuli as paranormal if we believe we're in a haunted space. Neuroscientists have found that when people anticipate supernatural experiences, their brains show increased activity in the amygdala, the fear center, and decreased activity in rational evaluation centers. The power of suggestion becomes exponentially stronger in groups. As social creatures, we're highly susceptible to emotional contagion, the unconscious mirroring of others' fearful reactions. This explains why ghost tours often yield the most sightings in locations where previous visitors have reported activity. A 2019 study demonstrated that participants were significantly more likely to report paranormal experiences when in groups where others first claimed to feel a presence. Certain locations seem to accumulate supernatural lore like snowballs rolling downhill. Cognitive scientists call this narrative accretion. Once a place gains even a minor reputation for being haunted, subsequent strange occurrences get incorporated into the growing legend. The process follows predictable patterns. Anchor events. A single unexplained incident establishes the location's haunted status. Confirmation bias. Future visitors selectively notice anything unusual while ignoring normal occurrences. Story drift. Details become exaggerated with each retelling. Cultural reinforcement. Media coverage and ghost hunting shows cement the location's reputation. Famous examples like the Stanley Hotel or Eastern State Penitentiary demonstrate this phenomenon. Their actual histories contain enough unusual elements to spark imagination, while their preserved decay provides the perfect canvas for projection. Our memories of frightening experiences in haunted locations undergo predictable distortions over time. Research shows that stress hormones enhance memory for central details while degrading peripheral ones. The brain fills memory gaps with plausible fabrications. Repeated retellings further alter the memory. This explains why people often become more convinced of paranormal experiences the more time passes since the event. A creak heard during an anxious moment transforms in memory into a definitive supernatural encounter. Interestingly, locations can lose their haunted reputation when certain factors change. Renovations that improve lighting and acoustics, changes in ownership that alter the narrative, or even simple rebranding can make a formerly terrifying place feel benign. This malleability further supports the psychological rather than paranormal nature of these experiences. The most genuinely unsettling places may be those that tap into evolutionary fears: darkness, where predators could lurk, spaces where we feel trapped, or environments that provide sensory uncertainty. Our modern minds, no longer worried about saber-toothed tigers, interpret these ancient alarm bells as evidence of ghosts. In this light, haunted places serve as mirrors reflecting the architecture of human fear itself, proving that the most powerful spirits may indeed be those dwelling in our own minds. The terrifying realm of sleep paralysis, when nightmares invade reality. Imagine waking in the dead of night to find your body frozen, an oppressive weight crushing your chest, and a shadowy figure lurking in the corner of your room. This is sleep paralysis, bizarre phenomenon where the boundaries between dreaming and wakefulness blur, creating some of humanity's most universal yet personal supernatural experiences. Across cultures and centuries, people have interpreted these episodes as demonic visitations, alien abductions, or spiritual encounters. Modern neuroscience, however, reveals a fascinating biological explanation for these terrifying night visions. Victims of sleep paralysis consistently report three core elements: complete bodily immobilization, an overwhelming sense of dread, and vivid hallucinations of a menacing presence. The inability to move or speak while fully conscious creates primal panic. Our brains interpret this paralysis as an external force restraining us. The sensed presence often takes culturally specific forms: the old hag of Newfoundland folklore, the Kanashibari demon of Japan, or the modern shadow people of contemporary paranormal lore. Many sufferers describe physical sensations: pressure on the chest, tingling limbs, or the disturbing feeling of being watched or touched. What makes these experiences particularly unsettling is their hyper-real quality. Unlike typical dreams, sleep paralysis hallucinations engage all senses equally. Victims report smelling rotting flesh, hearing whispers or footsteps, and feeling icy touches with terrifying clarity. This multi-sensory realism helps explain why so many people remain convinced of supernatural explanations even after learning the scientific basis. Sleep paralysis occurs when the brain transitions unusually between REM sleep and wakefulness. During normal REM sleep, the dream phase, the brain paralyzes the body, a state called atonia, to prevent us from acting out dreams. In sleep paralysis, this protective mechanism activates either while falling asleep, hypnagogic, or waking up, hypnopompic, leaving the mind conscious while the body remains temporarily frozen. Three key neurological processes create the signature symptoms. The paralysis itself stems from continued activation of the brainstem's inhibitory system that normally prevents movement during REM sleep. The sensed presence arises from the temporoparietal junctions, a brain area that helps distinguish self from other. When this region misfires during the twilight state between sleep and waking, it generates the powerful illusion of another entity sharing our space. The hallucinations occur because dream imagery intrudes into waking consciousness. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, becomes hyperactive, populating these visions with threatening figures. Some researchers propose that sleep paralysis experiences may have an evolutionary basis. The tendency to perceive these episodes as supernatural encounters could stem from an ancient survival mechanism. Better to falsely detect a predator or hostile spirit than to miss a real threat. This better safe than sorry cognitive bias would have been particularly valuable in our ancestral nighttime environments. The common theme of chest pressure and breathing difficulty might relate to our instinctive fear of suffocation. The slight oxygen deprivation that can occur during REM sleep, when breathing becomes irregular, may trigger this sensation which the half-awake brain interprets as something sitting on the chest. While the biological basis remains constant, cultural context shapes how people interpret sleep paralysis. In Newfoundland, the phenomenon becomes the old hag who sits on sleepers' chests. In Japan, it's the kanashibari of Buddhist tradition. Contemporary Western accounts often describe alien abductions or shadowy home intruders. These variations demonstrate how our brains dress raw neurological phenomena in culturally relevant imagery. Interestingly, some cultures have developed positive interpretations. In certain African traditions, sleep paralysis signals spiritual awakening. Some Islamic scholars viewed it as a time when the soul temporarily leaves the body. These alternative frameworks show how the same biological event can generate either terror or transcendence depending on cultural conditioning. For most people, sleep paralysis remains an occasional frightening curiosity, but when episodes become frequent, they can significantly impact quality of life. Chronic sufferers may develop anticipatory anxiety about sleeping, leading to insomnia that ironically makes further episodes more likely. In these cases, the condition may relate to irregular sleep schedules common among students and shift workers, sleep deprivation, stress and trauma. PTSD sufferers experience sleep paralysis at higher rates. Sleeping on one's back, which appears to increase occurrence likelihood. Treatment typically focuses on sleep hygiene improvement and stress reduction. Cognitive behavioral therapy can help reframe the experience as harmless neurological glitches rather than supernatural encounters. Some clinicians teach patients to recognize the onset of an episode and consciously transform the frightening imagery, a technique that turns the experience into a form of lucid dreaming. Historical accounts of demonic night visits and witch attacks likely describe sleep paralysis. The famous 17th century Salem witch trials included descriptions remarkably similar to modern sleep paralysis reports. Today's scientific understanding doesn't diminish the reality of these experiences for sufferers, but rather provides a framework for understanding them as remarkable examples of brain chemistry creating convincing alternate realities. The next time you wake frozen in fear, remember that shadowy figure by your bed is actually a testament to your brain's incredible capacity for narrative creation. In the liminal space between sleep and waking, we all become temporary authors of our own horror stories, with neuroscience providing the pen. The cultural engine of the paranormal, how media shapes our supernatural fears. A shadowy figure creeps through a Japanese apartment, its elongated limbs and hollow eyes perfectly matching the yokai of local folklore. Across the ocean, an English family flees their home, convinced the knocking in their walls comes from the same Victorian-era ghost that haunted characters in last night's horror movie. These aren't coincidences, but examples of how culture and media serve as factories for the supernatural, manufacturing and refining our paranormal beliefs with remarkable precision. Modern horror cinema operates as a particularly potent delivery system for supernatural tropes. The techniques filmmakers use to evoke fear, unsettling sound design, strategic lighting, and carefully timed jump scares, mirror the environmental conditions that naturally trigger our threat detection systems. When we subsequently encounter similar conditions in real life, a creaking floorboard at night, an oddly shaped shadow, our brains reach for the media-fed narrative first. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Movies borrow from folklore, then their imagery reshapes what people report seeing. Social media has exponentially amplified this effect. Viral ghost sighting videos employ visual tricks that exploit our pattern-seeking cognition. The grainy quality of night vision footage, for instance, forces our brains to overinterpret ambiguous shapes, much like staring at clouds. platform's algorithms then ensure these videos reach precisely the audiences most likely to accept them as genuine mimes, typically younger viewers who've consumed similar content before. A 2023 Cambridge study found that each paranormal video viewed increased belief in supernatural phenomena by approximately 17%, regardless of the video's veracity. History brims with examples of media sparking widespread supernatural panics. The 1938 War of the Worlds radio broadcast famously caused nationwide hysteria despite clear disclaimers. More recently, the 2016 Slender Man stabbing demonstrated how creepypasta horror could spill into real-world violence. These cases reveal three consistent factors that transform fictional horror into collective panic. Plausibility anchors. The narrative incorporates enough realistic elements to bypass skepticism, like setting the Blair Witch Project in an actual Maryland forest. Social proof cascades. Early adopters validate the phenomenon, creating momentum for wider belief, as occurred with the 2014 Charlie Charlie Challenge viral summoning game. Ambiguity preservation. Authorities' inability to immediately debunk claims allows speculation to flourish, seen in the 2019 Momo Challenge hoax. These digital age phenomena mirror historical outbreaks of mass hysteria like the 15th century dancing plagues or the 1692 Salem witch trials, updated for contemporary media ecosystems. The entities people encounter during sleep paralysis or paranormal experiences vary dramatically by culture, revealing how deeply our supernatural expectations are learned rather than innate. Japan's yurei tradition emphasizes ghostly women with long black hair and white burial kimonos, reflecting cultural anxieties about improper funeral rites and suppressed feminine rage. The 1998 film Ringu, later adapted as The Ring, codified this imagery globally. Scandinavian folklore features the Mara, night demon that sits on sleepers' chests. This directly parallels sleep paralysis experiences, showing how biology and culture intertwine. Latin American apparitions often take religious forms like La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, blending indigenous beliefs with Catholic iconography. The 2019 horror film La Llorona updated this legend for modern audiences while preserving its cultural roots. Anglo-American ghosts typically appear in period clothing relevant to local history. Civil War soldiers in the South, Victorian children in England. The proliferation of ghost hunter TV shows has standardized certain elements like ectoplasmic mists and EVP, electronic voice phenomena. These variations aren't arbitrary. They reflect each culture's specific historical traumas, religious frameworks, and societal anxieties. Japanese ghost stories frequently involve technology like cursed videotapes, haunted cell phones, mirroring the nation's rapid modernization. American paranormal narratives often focus on violated domestic spaces like haunted houses, possessed children, speaking to anxieties about family stability. Functional MRI studies reveal why supernatural media affects us so profoundly. When viewers watch horror content, the amygdala activates as if threats were real, bypassing rational evaluation. The visual cortex becomes hyper-responsive to similar stimuli afterward. Memory encoding prioritizes frightening content, an evolutionary survival mechanism. This neural hijacking explains why people who watch ghost movies often report subsequent paranormal experiences. Their brains have been primed to interpret ambiguous stimuli as supernatural. The effect intensifies when media consumption occurs before sleep, allowing content to influence dream states and hypnagogic hallucinations. Understanding media's role in shaping paranormal belief offers powerful tools for critical thinking. Educational programs that teach basic filmmaking tricks, how lighting creates ghostly figures, audio manipulation techniques, generating spirit voices, cognitive bias awareness, why we see faces in random patterns. As augmented and virtual reality technologies mature, the line between media-generated and authentic supernatural experiences will blur further. Future hauntings may involve holographic projections or AI-generated phenomena, creating unprecedented challenges for distinguishing technological trickery from purported paranormal events. In this emerging landscape, cultural stories will continue shaping what we fear, and more importantly, how we choose to interpret those fears when the lights go out. The psychology of supernatural belief, why our brains create ghosts. On a moonless night, your peripheral vision catches movement where none exists. The wind whistling through trees becomes whispered voices. This instinct to perceive consciousness in the shadows isn't a flaw in human cognition, it's a feature honed by evolution. Our tendency to believe in the supernatural stems from ancient survival mechanisms, cognitive shortcuts, and deep-seated existential fears that collectively shape how we interpret the unexplained. Our ancestors lived in a world where mistaking a rustling bush for a predator meant wasted energy, but ignoring a potential threat could mean death. This evolutionary trade-off created what psychologists call hyperactive agency detection device, a mental module predisposed to assume intentional action behind ambiguous events. In modern terms, we'd rather see a ghost in the hallway than miss an actual intruder. Studies show this detection system activates most strongly under three conditions: in darkness, when alone, and during stress. Precisely the circumstances most associated with paranormal experiences. This cognitive bias interacts with our brain's exceptional pattern recognition abilities. Humans can identify faces in cloud formations and voices in white noise, skills that helped our ancestors spot camouflaged predators or recognize kin. Today, these same mechanisms transform random stimuli into meaningful supernatural signs. Neuroscientific research demonstrates that when people believe they're in a haunted location, their sensory cortices actually process visual and auditory input differently, increasing false pattern recognition by up to 40%. When confronted with unexplained phenomena, human cognition defaults to narrative over statistics. We prefer coherent stories with intentional actors rather than acknowledging random chance or complex chains of natural causation. This explains why a series of coincidences, say multiple family members falling ill after moving into a new home, often becomes a cursed house rather than a search for environmental toxins. Three key cognitive biases feed supernatural explanations. Intentionality bias. We assume events happen for a purpose. A vase falling becomes a spirit's warning rather than unstable furniture. Confirmation bias. Once someone considers paranormal activity, they selectively notice supporting evidence while ignoring contradictory information. A clock stopping at 3:15 a.m. seems meaningful if it's the witching hour, but not if it stops at other times. Post hoc reasoning. The human brain excels at creating causal connections after the fact. A dream about a deceased relative followed by an unexpected phone call becomes they were reaching out from beyond rather than coincidence. Our awareness of death creates what terror management theorists call existential anxiety, a fundamental discomfort with our finite nature. Supernatural beliefs serve as psychological buffers against this anxiety. The concept of ghosts preserves consciousness beyond bodily death, while demons and curses provide alternative explanations for suffering that would otherwise seem meaningless. Research shows that reminders of mortality increase supernatural belief. In controlled experiments, subjects who wrote about their own death subsequently showed greater belief in paranormal phenomena compared to control groups. This effect intensifies when people feel lacking control-wise, explaining why supernatural beliefs often surge during wars, pandemics, or personal crises. Cultural anthropologists observe that societies with stronger afterlife beliefs tend to have lower suicide rates, suggesting these narratives serve an important psychological function. The modern persistence of ghost stories, even among the scientifically literate, may stem from this deep-seated need to conceptualize existence continuing beyond physical death. Supernatural beliefs frequently serve social cohesion functions. Shared ghost stories reinforce group identity and transmit cultural values. The Japanese Obon tradition, where ancestors are believed to return annually, strengthens family bonds. Mexican Dia de Muertos celebrations transform mortality into a communal experience rather than a personal terror. Social media has created new dimensions for supernatural belief transmission. Online communities provide instant validation for paranormal experiences that might previously have been dismissed. A 2023 study found that TikTok users who posted about supernatural encounters received 300% more engagement than those posting skeptical analyses, creating powerful reinforcement for belief systems. Understanding the psychological roots of supernatural belief doesn't diminish the reality of people's experiences. Rather, it reveals how our magnificent cognitive machinery, optimized for survival in ancient environments, sometimes misfires in modern contexts. The same pattern detection that lets a radiologist spot tumors also sees faces and random noise. The agency detection that helped our ancestors avoid predators now interprets creaking pipes as intruders. Educational interventions that teach probabilistic thinking and scientific methodology can moderate Midas but rarely eliminate. Even professional scientists show elevated belief in anomalous events when stressed or sleep deprived, proving these cognitive patterns run deep in our species. As neuroscience advances, we're discovering that certain brain stimulation can induce mystical experiences on demand, blurring the line between neurology and spirituality. Perhaps the most profound revelation isn't that ghosts don't exist externally, but that our minds remain haunted by evolutionary legacies we're only beginning to understand. In this light, the persistence of supernatural belief becomes less about gullibility and more about the fascinating architecture of human cognition itself, a system so determined to find meaning that it sometimes creates it where none objectively exists. Between the known and the unknowable, making sense of mysterious phenomena, the human experience brims with moments that defy easy explanation: shadows moving without a source, whispers in empty rooms, dreams that seemingly predict events. As we've explored various supernatural claims through scientific lenses, a nuanced picture emerges. Some phenomena have clear natural explanations, while others remain tantalizingly unexplained. This final analysis examines what we can confidently demystify, what still puzzles researchers, and why maintaining both skepticism and wonder serves us best. Modern science has decoded numerous phenomena once considered paranormal. Sleep paralysis accounts for many demon attack experiences across cultures. Infrasound explains why certain buildings consistently produce feelings of unease and ghostly sightings. Electromagnetic fields in old structures can trigger temporal lobe disturbances that manifest as sensed presences. Even the classic haunted house trope often stems from toxic mold exposure, causing hallucinations and paranoia. Psychological mechanisms explain much of what gets labeled supernatural. Our pattern-seeking brains transform random noise into meaningful messages, a survival skill that misfires in quiet bedrooms at night. Memory distortions turn ordinary events into extraordinary tales with each retelling. The placebo effect's evil twin, the nocebo effect, demonstrates how expectation can manifest physical symptoms, explaining some cases of alleged curses or possessions. Technological advances have demystified previously unexplainable occurrences. Thermal cameras reveal how drafts create cold spots. Night vision shows how light refraction produces orbs. Audio analysis distinguishes between supernatural electronic voice phenomena and ordinary radio interference. Each solved mystery follows a pattern. Careful observation replaces anecdote. Controlled testing replaces assumption. Despite these advances, certain reports resist easy categorization. Some cases of apparent precognition, particularly in dreams, show statistically significant accuracy that challenges coincidence explanations. Certain near-death experiences include verified observations made while clinically dead. A small percentage of poltergeist cases involve physical effects witnessed by multiple observers under controlled conditions. These outliers don't necessarily validate supernatural claims, but they highlight gaps in current scientific models. Quantum physics has revealed a reality far stranger than classical physics predicted. Dark matter and dark energy constitute most of the universe composition, yet remain poorly understood. As physicist Richard Feynman noted, The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. This humility before the unknown separates science from dogma. Critical thinking doesn't mean dismissing all unusual claims. It means proportioning belief to evidence. This approach recognizes that absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Lack of current explanation doesn't prove supernatural causes. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Human perception and memory are inherently fallible. Developing this balanced perspective matters because belief systems have real-world consequences. The 2016 Pizzagate conspiracy theory showed how supernatural-style thinking can inspire violence. Conversely, dismissing all anomalous reports risks missing genuine scientific breakthroughs. Many medical conditions were initially mistaken for possession. Educational systems that teach probabilistic reasoning, cognitive biases, and the scientific method create citizens better equipped to navigate our information-saturated world. Knowing that our brains evolved to see faces in clouds helps us pause before seeing faces in dust-covered window panes. Science will likely never explain every subjective experience people call supernatural. The felt presence of deceased loved ones during grief, for instance, serves an important psychological function that resists cold analysis. Some wilderness encounters defy conventional zoological categories while lacking physical evidence. Certain meditation-induced states produce consistent descriptions of transcendence across cultures yet elude neuroscientific explanation. This irreducible mystery isn't a failure of science but a reflection of reality's complexity. As astronomer Carl Sagan observed, "It is far better to grasp the universe as it really is than to persist in delusion, however satisfying and reassuring." Yet the same man who debunked UFO myths also wrote that somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known. The healthiest stance may be what researcher Christopher French calls open-minded skepticism, willingness to investigate unusual claims without prejudgment while maintaining rigorous standards of evidence. This approach allows us to appreciate why our ancestors believed in spirits without sharing their beliefs, enjoy ghost stories as cultural artifacts while understanding their psychological roots, remain awed by the universe's genuine mysteries without filling gaps with fantasy. As we stand between the illuminated territory of scientific knowledge and the dark frontier of the unexplained, we might recall that the word mystery originally meant not something to be solved but something to be contemplated. In this spirit, perhaps the final lesson isn't about separating the real from the unreal, but about developing the wisdom to know when we've found answers and the humility to recognize when we haven't yet asked the right questions. The true supernatural may not be ghosts or demons, but the astonishing fact that a universe of atoms can contemplate itself at all.